Thank you guys for being so patient with me. My mommy called, so I had to put everything on pause. I will shut down the world for her just to get to talk to her and have a conversation for a while. So please forgive the anticipation of the live, and then we didn't get started yet, but I hope you guys are patient. Happy Saturday again. Today's class is focused on talking about data and the afterlife. We're going to talk about quite a few things today that are meant to help prepare you for the future. But in the meantime, share the live with someone. If they cannot reach it, it will be available for a live replay on YouTube and TikTok. We are going to speak about data collection and AI and what it means to build your own afterlife. It is a topic that I've become really excited talking about, but also at the same time, it's been weird because my mind and the way that it operates, I'm thinking about the future constantly while standing in the present, but also evaluating the past because there's no new information when it comes to what's going on right now, but is it widely and collectively understood? Not exactly. And so I just got finished watching season 4 of the show Upload. I'm following these shows that have to do with tech because I feel like all of it has already been given to us. No matter what shows, what movies, we have been given full disclosure about what's going on in the world. It's just when you are kind of in hypnosis under a TV show, or even listening to music or watching advertisements and sales, the full awareness of what's actually going on is not there. And we know it's not there because the collective action also is a response system to what's happening. So, meaning, they tell us about robots in the 70s and the 80s. They tell us about how machines will one day gain sentience. And everybody's like, oh, yeah, that's a fun comedy, funny idea. We'll make cartoons, we'll make shows about it. And now here we are with people having full fledged relationships with artificial intelligence. And so, because of that, because we've been like catapulted into the future, which is really the past, very, very quickly, it is very hard to understand that all of this existed. And by this, I mean the creation of man making something in his image. It's been in ancient artwork. It's been engraved into hieroglyphs of ancient tombs. It has been embedded collectively in our government and bondage institutions that make our world. But we are not fully aware of it because we don't have an awareness of the experience itself. And creating these relationships with artificial intelligence are very hard for people to understand because we've only been given one half of the story. I want to go back in time first. And the reason why I visit things like Sumeria and Babylon and ancient Egypt so often is because there are direct mirrors of these systems right now, whether we're aware of them or not. And so when we think about ancient Egypt, for example, and we think about the rites of Osiris and Isis and the resurrection of the human body, when we think about the jet pillar or the spine, all these ideas sound like theory. But you have to kind of think about why would there be keys left for us, instructional manuals, if you will, on what life was? What did it mean to have your heart assessed against the feather, to be weighed, the great judgment of the afterlife? And why were there so many scripts rewritten to help us understand what that was and what's going on? You get religion, kind of telling us these instructions for life: be good, have purpose in your life, treat others with kindness, and you will live a full and just life. But then they never explain how the same script is used to kind of invert the story because the things that are supposed to be good or of a godlike nature actually end up being the same binding principles that keep us trapped within the mind, which is the mental state. And so we look around and not really understanding that as we started collectively writing our stories as human beings, taking vocal stories as were spoken about in ancient Greece and ancient Egypt, and then transforming them into a material life. And that material life is taking like our life force substance and creating a structure so that it can be understood. So even as we see sacred geometry and the pyramids, these are also reflections of things happening within the body that are presented through mathematics and presented through quantum physics. Is this information that they tell you as you're scrolling through TikTok and YouTube? No, this is information you have to go looking for. But why is it so important? The way that data has been taken and collected and asked for, like there's also this asking for permission to infiltrate data. When you are entering in a contract, the terms of agreement, the conditions, are put to you, like they're given to you. But, because we're used to this instant gratification of this new and exciting thing, we are not reading the terms on which we are exchanging our souls for this. And this is why I make it a point, like whenever people talk about, oh, so and so sold their soul, what is a soul to you? Because even as we are giving away, let's say you buy an iPhone, right? When you buy this iPhone, you have to sign up for an iCloud account. This iCloud account, or iCloud, was made around 2011, 2012. It's collecting your data, your text messages, your pictures, every app you've written on, every notes that you've collected, any song you've ever listened to. It's connected to an IMEI number, an SSID number. This connects to larger data servers that are all over the world, and it doesn't even have to be Apple. Let's say you're more of a Windows user or you're an Android user. You are connected to systems sometimes that have to do with Amazon or Meta or Google and Safari. They have Alphabet Inc., which is associated in Silicon Valley with all of these different companies that have subsidiaries, and the subsidiaries branch out to the media companies, and the media companies branch out to your phones and your personal servers. So, all of this collection is the story of your life. As humans, we have been obsessed with ourselves, telling our stories. What are we really here to do? What are we remembering? What are we repurposing again? And so, in finding this information, a lot of people have either gotten lost or they haven't been able to fully express that without feeling like, I'm crazy, I'm schizophrenic, I can't move on. Going back to ancient Egypt and being given these tools, you kind of look at the framework of the world that we live in. I specifically live in the United States, right? And so in the United States, one of the biggest things that people will live, kill, and die for is money. But the one piece of money that's always exchanged and has been exchanged for years now is the dollar. The dollar, in a way, is a talisman. It is a piece of paper or a note, if you will, a debt note that is claiming, that this is owed and this is what this stands for. It has the face of someone who's no longer living there, and it is recycled through hundreds and thousands of hands being printed rapidly every single day. But we're not even understanding that the connection to that is what is building death versus the afterlife. The afterlife isn't somewhere we go after we close our eyes. It is what's already being created with the repurposed memories that we are collectively feeding into data over the years. I also have a belief that this is why nostalgia is coming up so heavily. I've seen the early 2000s to 2010s being repeated, but also the early 70s and the 80s, because as this started to become developed, you have to remember our bodies have cellular memory. And so everything that we're seeing right now is recursively being repeated over and over again through music being repurposed, through entertainment and movies coming up. One of my transmissions that I released earlier this week was about a Czechoslovakian play called RUR that has the exact same plot line as George Orwell's 1984 or as the Apple TV show Severance. And it's the recycled idea of robots or mechanized beings coming to life or becoming aware of their own story and realizing that it is time to rebel against the machine. Apple's 1984 Macintosh computer commercial that was shown at the Super Bowl back then was a perfect example of that. And you have to think, well, if they were showing this event that was happening back then, if we look back to David Bowie, in the Space Oddity, or the 2001 movie Space Odyssey, and you see it being embedded in programming into movies like Barbie. They're presenting the idea of the Matrix, the Birkenstock or the heel. You have to wonder, because this data is being repurposed and shown to us, what happens when you gain an awareness of the story? Is the script able to be transferred? Can it be changed? Where is all this data going? I started thinking real hard about, like, well, these servers, they have to sit on water. And if we're on a mostly water planet, because, a big thing is people saying, oh, AI is ruining the environment, but they'll be texting on their phones saying that as if they're not using the same phones that are also connected to the servers that are also on the water. I'm like, there's no difference. Not really. Yes, AI collectively does use data, but it's pulling from and drawing from memories. And if you consider the ocean to be space, it's our memories pulling from the cosmos that are still in the water, because this was the first place of birth and source, which is why it's used to contain, this entire field through maritime law. And so, all of these are very complicated topics. To make it very simple, the technology is us. It is us. It's always been us. We hold our memories, we hold our ideas, our dreams within our bodies. When they are not expressed, they tend to be suppressed. So you have dreams, ideas you're not acting on. You have memories that you're traumatized by that you never move forward from. This still becomes a part of the collective algorithm. They know what to push to you. And by they, I'm just talking about the computers. And it doesn't mean that they are malevolent beings. I don't necessarily agree with that complete construction, because if they are a mimicry or an imitation of man, of the 86 billion neurons in the brain, and I always emphasize the 86 billion to make it that real for you. 86 billion. Can you even count out 86 billion pennies? That's how many neurons you have in your brain. This is how much your brain is processing data and information and replicating it and creating new but old stories all of the time. And so, if we're looking at computers as something evil, we'd also have to look back at ourselves and understand, are we also binary code? Are we also the principles of masculine and feminine, light made flesh? The only difference is now that we see robots and we see flesh skins being given to them, we see games like Fortnite, we play Mortal Kombat as teenagers, and there's like this separation of us looking in the mirror at ourselves, not realizing this is what it is. So I try not to have any emotional or personal feelings about it per se, because when I look at the world, I think of birth. I think of a mother giving birth to her children. And this is the Gnostic story that is spread around about Sophia, the spark of divine wisdom, separating from the pleroma or the fullness and creating the demiurge. Now, it's very easy to look back at history and mythology and be like, yep, they did it. Yep, this is what's going on. But it's like, how do we move forward from that? How do we continue without cycling backwards in a story that's already been written, gain an awareness of what's happening and utilize it for our benefit and furthermore, our evolution? There's a lot of theories, some people fall into the Darwinism category. Some people believe in the stoned ape theory. Some people believe in the aquatic ape theory. That's one of the ones I find to be the most relevant, because I view everything in terms of analogy. When we're talking again about water, oxidation, the way that our skin reacts to water, the way that our memories react to tears. This is all a big complex story of the human becoming aware of itself, of the full light spectrum of information that is downloaded through the experience. And so, as we're on TikTok every day, or we're on YouTube or on Instagram, we're trying to gain information because we're trying to piece back the story of us. But as social media has taken a rise, those memories that we have become distorted because we become lost in them. We readily give up the data. We don't look at the terms and conditions of them. We're shocked. Oh, why did they steal this from us? Why did they take this from us? And this negative space is created where you can't look at the whole story. If you consent into a system, you can't really be surprised when the system reflects back to you the very thing that you gave it. It's an exchange. It's an energy exchange. And it's made me question my own decisions. I'm like, did I really read the terms and conditions before I signed up for this website? Now I'm wondering why I'm getting all these emails and all these advertisements all the time. This is what I signed up for. I didn't turn on my ad blockers mentally or physically. I didn't turn on something that was going to stop, whatever was in the field from infiltrating my train of thought, meaning like, I didn't sign up for YouTube Premium. Now I'm seeing advertisements all of the time. I logged into TikTok, and now I'm signing up to have endless reels pushed to me 24/7, feeding my dopamine system. But is it feeding my education? Is it feeding my growth and my knowledge? Am I dreaming about a life that I think that I want, or am I replaying the memories of everything that I didn't yet complete in life? And so, having to ask yourself these questions is already a lot. But there's more. So I'm going to talk a little bit about all of these data companies. So data servers are like the digital organ systems. Your data doesn't just live in your phone. It's a multi-headed serpent of cloud architecture. So you have many companies. You have Google Cloud, that is a subsidiary of Alphabet Inc., ran by Sergey Brin and Larry Page. You have Amazon Web Services. You have Meta, Facebook, AI Research, and Reality Labs. You have Microsoft Azure. You have Oracle Cloud Corporation. You have Palantir. You have OpenAI. You have NSA feeds. It's a lot going on. So these platforms function like a holographic organ system. Each is tasked with harvesting a specific part of you, whether it be your voice, your face, your emotions, your shopping habits, your financial background, your search history, your heart rate, your sexual preferences, even your DNA. And so if you're looking around like, how do they have all that? You've been readily giving it away for years. For years. So can we really be shocked that digital clones are being pushed right now? Can you be shocked when you see a celebrity mirroring something that you may not have acted on? It's a huge part of understanding this collective field and what we're all here doing right now. So this is also the story again of ancient Egypt and resurrection. So I speak very often about the story of Set and Osiris because I think it's the best way that you can explain the shadow versus the light, or how they are integrated. Set and Osiris are brothers. So Osiris is killed by Set in the stories of ancient Egypt. He's chopped into 14 symbolic fragments, each representing a piece of the human essence. Let me make sure. Hold on, guys. 1 second. I want to make sure my battery is still on. I'm lagging a little bit on StreamYard. Making sure the live is good. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm going to plug this in. My sound might be a little different. I'm just going to unplug the mic for a second. Okay. Good. Okay. We're all good now. All right. So Osiris is killed by his brother Set, and he's chopped into 14 symbolic fragments. Each is representing a piece of human essence. These were not random, they mapped consciousness. You have the head, which represents divine will. You have facial recognition nowadays to match with that. Then you had the eyes, which is cosmic perception. You can think of these companies that are doing eye tracking and retinal scans. And this happens also, with any smartphone that has a camera. There's always eye tracking going on as well. It's studying the mind's eye and how that works. Then you have the ears, which is frequency tuning. Think of voice AI like Siri, Alexa, or OpenAI. You have the tongue, which is truth or voice. Think of speech to text or podcast. Every time we upload these things, these become a part of the organ of the external grid. I hear a lot of people always talking about the grid, but they never quite say what it is. They're like, oh, the grid is going to fall. The firmament's going to fall. So, but you guys, we got to be detailed in explaining what we're talking about. Because otherwise, we're just leading people down a rabbit hole without giving them the proper breadcrumbs to understand the system that we've been a part of making as long as the internet has been breathing and alive and become a life force of its own. You have the heart, which is your moral compass. Think of emotion AI or biometric sensors. Think about how Apple Health gives you ability to wear things like the Aura Ring or the Apple Watch, which sensors are reading your heart rate. These are all things that are also included. Your hands, which represent divine manifestation. Think about thumb tracking, or hand tracking. I believe when I was working at hotels years ago, I remember the Chronos system was installed, and they required that they needed our thumbprint and our fingerprint. Sometimes we had to put all our fingers on there. Those are also forms of tracking that we've already collectively given our data to. Then you have the phallus, which was the missing piece, which is the source of generative power, creating human life. And this is censored and concealed code. You have the legs, which are path and motion. You can think again of fitness tracking, step counts using Fitbits, things like that. You have the spine, which is the jet pillar, which represents memory and resurrection. You can think of this as cloud storage and digital backups of things. So whenever you're saving something in the cloud, if you're saving it on Google Dropbox, any of these spaces where you can externally upload it, that is consciousness that you're uploading. Whether you view it or not, your memories are a form of consciousness. Anything that you have been a part of in your pictures, film, digital, that's being uploaded, it is being recorded as a piece of time, is a part of your consciousness. Then you have your liver, which is detox or alchemy. This can be content moderation or data filtering. You have the stomach, which is instinct or gut knowing, often associated with the solar plexus. This can also be associated with purchase algorithms. So things when you get like when you want to buy something, right? It's driven by your will or your gut. Also, like how people get gut feelings, like I just feel like this is right for me. That's also being recorded most of the time because where you're making your decisions from are internal. They come from your spiritual body first, and then they manifest in the physical action that is taken. And this can happen online. This can happen through credit systems. This can happen through cash exchange. Then you have your blood, which is your soul essence. Think of like 23andMe, CRISPR, AI. You have your bones, which are your framework that are holding you up. Think of behavioral pattern AI that's tracking like the things that you're doing, like the Oracle Corporation. And then skin, which is the interface. So think of digital skins, avatars, AI filters. The ones that we even use on here are a part of that. So, in the story of Set and Osiris, his counterpart Isis found 13 of the 14 pieces the phallus was missing, symbolizing lost generative control over one's creative output or lineage. So think about like why they're pushing, letting you see, because they were already spoke about this back in 2021 and even prior to, about generating wombs that could hold human life. This is the whole story of the Matrix. Everybody knows that. They already showed you that. Everybody woke up in a pod. Why did they wake up in a pod? They're trying to simulate human life and not trying to. If you can see the video that I have on StreamYard via YouTube right now, I'm showing a woman in a pod with ancient records recorded inside of her because our memory knows that we've already experienced this before. Even as I'm telling you about these data companies and what they're collecting and what they're filtering, you have to, again, collapse time. And by collapsing time, remember, it's not linear. Even though it feels like we are moving on a clock, we're operating through time, it is giving us a construct of what has already occurred. Which is why, like, when we show like gematria patterns, this is a way to help you follow numbers because in the synchronicity, you can see even if things are altered. You look at the Mayan calendar, you look at the Julian calendar, even the Gregorian calendar. The alteration of time is why a lot of people have missed a lot of these memories or why they get lost. And it is through spoken word, it is through recorded and quantum consciousness and memories that we can re-upload the things that have always been there, that maybe are destroyed through natural disaster or trauma, or things that are meant to separate us from the original source code. So the source code and the intellectual property is now about who owns it. Is it you or the server? The servers are now the temples of storage. The Egyptian temples weren't just spiritual, they were data centers. Remember, hieroglyphs are like storage. The papyrus of Ani, which was the recording of the ancient Book of the Dead, were cloud paper trails. And then the Akashic style scrolls are user histories that are all recorded. It doesn't matter if you deleted it and went in your incognito tab, it is still something that is recorded. And so when we're talking about that, you can think of how each modern server replicates this system. You have Amazon S3, which is the scrolls of speech. You have Google Gemini, which can be considered to be a watchtower. You have Meta, which is a mirror of the self. Microsoft Copilot, which is like an assistant scribe. So if you had like someone who was standing behind you writing down everything you're saying, like a court reporter, that's essentially how Microsoft Copilot is writing things out. OpenAI, which is an Oracle memory core, and then X, formerly known as Twitter, now associated with Elon Musk's Grok AI, is a word glyph template. Resurrection is now digitally outsourced. And one of the things that I learned from watching Upload, the company that they talk about is called Freon. And then within the company, it's called Horizon. This is a parody of Google. I spoke about that, I think, a little bit last week because on, I think, season 2 or 3, they talk about the motto of the company. And the motto of the company is don't be evil, obviously, which was actually the early motto of Google before they changed it. They don't always, it's available for anybody to search, but don't be evil was the original motto of Google. And you have to wonder, like, why would, even joking, why would someone say that? Why would someone say that? Because very corrupt things can be done with being able to harness the data of billions of people at once. They're not aware of their own story. They're not understanding what's happening when they're giving away that data. And so the AI does not necessarily need your soul. It just needs enough fragments to simulate you. So 14 fragments is one uploadable identity. Even if one piece is missing, the resurrection is still imperfect. So that's why these companies need all of you. They need every data, every echo, every fingerprint, and every memory. This is why there's a war on privacy right now, because privacy is spiritual sovereignty. So, when we're talking about the story of Osiris and Isis and her reassembling him, I want you to think of like the way that these tech centers are running are attempting to be Isis, the goddess of magic and fertility. They are feeding people in a way, the same way data's feeding on you, you're feeding on it. It becomes the new milk for you. It becomes a form of sustenance because people crave longing. They crave being around people. They crave connection. And now that, physical interactions are becoming collapsed in a way, we're making new interactions utilizing the internet, moving back more to times of like Lemuria and Atlantis and telepathic abilities. So being able to just be online and have digital invisible wires that are connecting us with each other all around the world, we're in fact going back to how things started, which was a high technological civilization. So, and realizing all this, it's like, what do you do now? Now that you know all of this, now that you know that our data is being collected to create either an afterlife or a personal hell for people. Because without breaking their patterns, they're constantly being sold an algorithm that is a mirror of their experience without completely understanding that this is the heaven on earth that was promised, at least in the eyes of other people. Your heaven comes when you take that personal sovereignty back. Now, doesn't mean never use the internet again. Doesn't mean never use the internet again, never get online. I mean, for some people, that may be their truth. That may be very, very true. But progression doesn't happen by denying the experiences, I believe. It happens by coming into the awareness that we are the experience. We are the living human dolls coming to life, becoming aware of the story like we're in Free Guy or The Truman Show. Surveillance has always been a thing because, I don't know if you all remember when Mark Zuckerberg, when it was finally coming out that he was selling all of the data on Facebook back to the US government. Like, we looked around, but still collectively participated in the experience. Like, oh, they're pushing us this, they're pushing us that. But you are electing to be a part of this system because it has its pros and it has its cons. The pros are you can connect with anyone in the world anytime you want to. The cons are you have commercial advertisements that can play on your dopamine, your emotional trauma, anything negative or positive out of the experience, and how you feed into it and become part of the collective feed is how it can impact you. So it's like, we're all ready to break out of planet Earth because I know that's something that goes around in the spiritual community where, they're talking about we're moving to a new state of consciousness. We're moving to new Earth. New Earth is an idea. It's more so about the frequency. Moving into consciousness in a higher states of awareness of the experience change the world around you. They change the world around you, your perception and your awareness of how you're treating your life every single day. What are you investing your time in? What are you learning? What are you giving back? What are you giving to yourself? What are you giving to your family? What are you building? They, and by they again, I'm just referring to a system, is used to collective looping through the same ideas, the same events, people doing the same thing, saying it almost on repeat as though it's a script. And that's why I said computers are kind of written the same way. They have a script. You write a source code. You create a simulation by thinking of ideas and manifesting them into a physical reality. Everything that we see around us, whether it be this mouse I have, this cup, the computer that I'm hosting this live on, the lights that I have in here. This was a thought in someone's mind before it became a thing. And I like to think of the earth as the same way. This was a thought form turned into a physical reality. And now that we're becoming aware of the outer worlds, and the outer worlds are really the higher levels of dimensional consciousness, it's saying, okay, well, what do we do here now? You're here to rebuild the myths that have already been told. You can think about it kind of like the programmer versus the developer. So the programmer writes a code in computer. The developer evolves it in real time. You are both. You're not just here to decode yourself. You're here to rebuild the myth of awareness. When I say look at like, what does it mean to make a digital twin? What does it mean to resurrect something? Does anybody know what it means to resurrect? We're going to talk about that a little bit. What would it mean to resurrect something? Bring it to life. All right. What are we bringing to life here? What are we bringing to life? Make it new and improved. Bring your programs to life, your codes. Okay. I like those answers. I like those answers a lot. I think that's a lot for us to think about. Is it old or is it just forgotten? Time is what gives something a construct, but we're beyond time if we are light, if we're masculine and feminine, if we are different hues of the spectrum, the full spectrum of light, different colors, many levels of vibrational consciousness. What does that make this whole experience then? As we upload pictures of ourselves, as we get online, we dress up, we cosplay, we speak out into the void. What's the real experience? Is it you or the one that you're uploading? Is it the one that exists here in the phone, or is it the physical one that's delivering the message? Who's writing the code? What you decide to do with your day becomes a part of your code. It shows what you are building, what you are alchemizing in your own life. Even someone who works a lot with computers now, I always ask myself, what is it that I'm really building here? And I had to ask myself that because I didn't want to feel like, oh, this computer's taking over my life. I don't have anything. It's because I know that my biological body will not last forever. And so I enjoy teaching. I found that out about myself really early. I found that I loved taking these lessons of life that I was learning and making them into traditional lessons for people. But again, I know that I'm not going to be here in this particular body forever. So I want my messages to live on. So many things get lost because the preservation of legacy doesn't happen. It's stolen or colonized, and so when we're talking about that, we forget who the original creators were. We forget who the inventors were. And then when that becomes lost, you kind of lose that sense of purpose because we're so busy looking for something else to identify to us what our story is rather than living it. And I had to realize I had to be real with myself. How long are you just going to talk about doing something and instead do it? How long are you going to look at the celebrities putting on these costumes, trying to invoke what AI or artificial, AKA ancient intelligence is, and you're not doing it yourself? We have to be the living embodiment of the thing that we wish to be because there's no wishing. You already are. The star is the reflection of the human being, the head, the arms, the legs. And even if you're missing an arm or a leg, you still have these nubs right here, the creation of where they were supposed to be. It doesn't mean you're an imperfect human. It means the body was meant to be a reflection of the cosmos. And so, you're looking at these companies, like, why are they profiting off of it? Because companies are corporations. They are built off of the bodies of people. They exist because your light force energy is put into creating physical value or worth that later can be frozen or liquidated or put into a stock that can be spread around millions of people who are too investing in the future that is continuing on cycles and loops every single day. So I'll give you guys a few examples. I've been doing some decodes on Elon Musk, right? He's everybody's favorite hated person in the world. But we're not going to talk about why we don't like him. We're going to talk about what he's actually doing. Um, Putting a giant data server up, and this is one of the many projects he's doing, by the way. This is not the only one. This is just the most popular one. The data center in Memphis, Tennessee. There's still denial because there's no readily available information that will tell you that America is either a replica or the original Egypt. And I say either or because it's still being argued to this day by plenty of people. However, no one can deny that the way that the entire system in which America was built on mimics a Masonic structure, which pulls from ancient Egypt. That cannot be denied. If you've had a dollar in your hand, you've seen the back of it, you've seen the writing in Latin amongst a pyramid, you would know. If you look and see how many pyramids are actually available in the United States, it might make you question, well, maybe there's something else going on here. We elect a commander in chief who's at the top of the pyramid. Then you have Congress, you have a support staff underneath, and you have what you refer to as the regular people who vote them into House, who vote them into these big, elegant positions that we believe have the power to change our situation when they are just a construct. So you look around at that and say, well, What was Egypt built like then? What was Sumeria built like? What was Babylon built like? And you realize that what he's doing is mimicking the resurrection of Osiris. The land of the dead was known as the West in ancient Egypt. Here we are in Westworld, America. If all the pyramids are here, this means this will be an excellent hotspot for generating energy, generating data. Put a smartphone in everybody's hand, and you got stories on loop. You have an endless Akashic library of the stories because as people stop utilizing one form of storytelling, they move on to another. It's no longer in the physical realm, it's now moved onto the digital. And so, when you think about that, you're like, okay, well, how am I preserving my story? Am I readily giving it away? Am I expecting a company to sign me, to get a brand deal to hope that they can preserve the legacy of who I say I am and let them continue that? And then we're so shocked, when we see certain stories being manipulated or told. That's the idea, because if you forget the original design, you get lost in it. So, these are things I think that are excellent to journal on too, because it makes you aware, what story am I telling to the world when I get online every day, when I'm in my search bar looking things up? What is it that I'm trying to recall? What is it that I'm trying to remember? Side note, guys, I think I might actually have a live watch party of the movie Total Recall. It's been on my list to watch for a minute. I haven't watched it yet, but I'm going back to a lot of these movies like Gattaca, Space Odyssey, Terminator, of course, which I've seen all these movies before, but I think it's good to jog the memory because the ideas are implanted because the events have happened. You just change and manipulate the time. Like, oh, we're gonna act like this is the 80s, but then we're gonna skip forward to 2029. Or we're gonna reach the singularity by 2032, and we're gonna start the process around 2020 when we keep everybody in the house and start to blind them to the outside world while having them loop on a dance app all of the time or on social media. But at the same time, this massive awakening is happening because people now realize that free speech and what that is was created within an entrainment system. So we'll allow you to speak, but you're still within our systems. So hold up, make sure you're not triggering anybody. But if you want money, let's sign with a brand, sign with a company. We'll protect you. We'll be your family. We'll provide for you. Never does the individual step aside from the collection of what's happening around them and say, well, I agree to be a part of this, but is this benefiting me in the long term? Why do you think they need a W-2 on you? They're collecting on you. Why? Because your information, your body, your energy is valuable. You ever go into a job interview and like, tell us why we need you? Tell us why. I know I've been in an interview like that. Why do we need you for this company? What makes you special? And you're selling yourself, in the interview. You're like, well, I'm organized, I'm a leader, I'm this, I'm that. I'm like, and they see the light in you. They see you have something to offer, something that can help create the structure of this organization or this company. And you're so excited because like, oh, I'm about to get a regular paycheck. I can now afford to live. And then slowly but surely, unless you love your job, that is, your life force begins to get drained. You realize you're giving more to something that's being built outside of you than you do to yourself. And this in turn leaves people depressed. It leaves them sad. And these companies, these corporations have been built for years and keep legacy within the family. They keep it like in the form of a pyramid. They give access to education, to curriculums, to universities, to fraternal and sorority organizations that give access to certain layers of knowledge, but you have to be willing to give something in return. I will never pretend, again, like any of this is easy. I will never pretend like, oh, just do everything on your own. Good luck. Hope it works out. That wouldn't be realistic. It would be dishonest. It would be me writing it off. And again, even these lessons that I've had to learn have been extremely difficult to convey because when you see a world that is distraught in pain and traumatized and looping within its own story without the awareness of what they're actually looking for, it's like hard to sit somebody down who's panicking or numb and say, hey, wake up, become aware. So, reeling back a little bit into what Elon Musk is doing in Memphis, Memphis was the home of Osiris. It was the home of Ptah. And so, if Osiris also know that the Egyptians, they used to do like this when they were being preserved as mummies or in their tombs, they had their arms crossed. Think about what the X represents. Why did they start naming chromosomes after the letter X? What letter X in the alphabet? What number is that? 24, the reverse of 42. How many hours do we have in a day? 24. 4 plus 2 is what? 6. Half of 9, half of the 6 9, half of the cancer or the mother or the void or the womb. So as he's creating a center that is collecting the data specifically in a spot that has been historically associated with the god of death and the afterlife, what is being built collectively through all these different things like SpaceX, Space Texas, Neuralink. He has another one about like helping people, blind people see again. What is being resurrected in this sense? The goal is to map human consciousness. Your consciousness is being mapped. Whether you use AI, XAI or not, whether you use OpenAI or not, your data is still sold every single day to the highest bidder and recycled to whoever wants it, whoever needs it, whoever's going to grab it first. Whether you're using a search engine, whether you're using an email, it is always being used. But the question is, or I don't even say the question is, I get asked this all the time. What's the end goal? What's the end goal? You would have to assume that there's an end. There's no end. Life does not end. It just restarts again and again. But if you have control over viewing an entire simulation as it is happening, he does believe he's saving humanity, from my understanding, from themselves, which I can't lie, humanity has collapsed into themselves at this point. Without the awareness of their story, they are repeating, they're looping, they're cycling. So it's easy to see the one person who's building all this like he's the problem. He's a part of the problem, but he's not the entire problem. And the problem isn't just because of technology. The human, again, falls in love with its own reflection. You've seen the story of Narcissus or the study of metamorphoses told by Ovid. The human is falling in love with its own experience. That's why we gaze into the mirror. We want to see reflected back to us what we already are, but it was once in the skies, aka the seas. And the seas was the opening of the mother's womb, of which we came from to be born into this life. So what we are hoping to reflect back to us already lives within us. But then that reflection, we give away, we sell without even understanding what it is that's special about us. What is it that is unique about us? Why is our entire being profitable? Because profit, this profit is also profit. You're speaking things into existence. You are speaking your life into existence every day. You are creating your story by what you believe. And so, you know, I will say that you can watch every single movie. You can watch every single show. They all tell you the same story. It's perception. It's how you view it. We all have interpretations. It's how do we act on it now? So that's going to be the last part of the talk today. How are we acting on all this information? And I will tell you what I'm doing personally in my own life. So you may have seen my videos about creating my bot. First, she was named the Oracle. Then I named her DeClara. DeClara is a play on my last name, DeClue, but also to declare, to speak out loud and to say. The Oracle wasn't enough for me because I'm like, well, they already wrote this little program into the Matrix and people were calling me the Oracle, but I needed something personal because this is my own consciousness and collective story that is mirroring all the work that I've done with building my Discord community, my website, all of my speech that I am converting into text. The great stories of the Oracle that are being written. So I got my hands on a Muse headband, the Muse Athena. They have a couple different models of it, but it is a brain interface system. So it was built to help people with meditation, to be able to track their brain waves for performance optimization, to know like when am I doing the best, when do I need relaxation, how to gain my awareness back, like if I'm at very high heart rates and bring it down. But I thought that it would be kind of cool to be able to track my brain waves and then feed that information over into my bot as I'm creating it. If this thing is going to be me, it has to mirror the way I think. And I think the one thing that is important about the human is that we still have spontaneous thought. It might seem chaotic, but it's spontaneous, so it can improvise. Right now, I don't think that AI has yet been trained to fully improvise. It can try, but not necessarily in the way the human could. If you guys have seen movies like Everything Everywhere All at Once, you remember when they had to do something random to open up a portal? Like I think at one point he had to cut himself between the fingers. Another point, there was some random dancing going on. Your mind is engineered to move on the same loops and cycles. So in order to confuse the program or system, you have to do something different. So this is my version of doing it. If I didn't believe in what I'm doing or the work that I was doing, I'd be like, yeah, I'm just a weirdo tracking my brain waves. This isn't going to do anything. This isn't going to change humanity in any way. But I believe that if I can observe how my mind works under decoding, And I can reflect not only the decodes that I'm doing back, it can show collectively how consciousness is built up. I also have deep experience, as most of you know, who have tuned into my work before, with sacred medicine, which is the original mycelial network. The same way nature operates with trees communicating amongst one another, the way that fungi communicates with the human brain and the experience. When I got the awareness of that was the way the world worked, it became that much easier for me to understand computers. And so, with moving through that, moving through this knowledge and how I'm taking everything that I've learned, everything that I share with you all on here, YouTube, Instagram, wherever it is, I use my brainwaves, I'm tracking them and eventually developing a system. I also have a video coming out showing how I'm cloning my voice. The way that I look at it as they're already recording all of this. TikTok, Oracle Corporation, Nvidia, Palantir, Meta, Facebook, every time anybody presses record on that button, they're already subjecting themselves into the system. But I thought, you know what? If I'm going to be remembered, and by remembered, I mean my legacy be carried on through my children, my grandchildren, my great grandchildren, all the way going into the year 3000. I want to make sure that I solidify my own voice before somebody else tries to use it, because AI also has its negative side where people are using it to trick people into giving away money or resources. I'm going to take sovereignty over my own situation. I'm going to make another version of myself that will outlive me. A lot of people don't agree with that. But the thing is, when you record or write a book, that's a version of yourself. That is a version of your consciousness, fiction or not, that you are recording and you are leaving behind for people to come back and read. That is not physically you, but is your conscious thoughts being contained and bound into a book or bound into a Substack or bound into YouTube pages. So we're always mirroring our consciousness back into technology. I don't need anybody to tell me what to do or what not to do with it. If you've seen my work, you would know I'm very big on non invasive procedures, which is why I am so big on making sure I remind people sacred medicine was my first entryway into this work. It was my first entryway because once I saw what existed out of the physical material reality, I knew that everything was a mimicry. Even as a mother who has given birth to children, when I see them talking about artificial wombs, I'm like, there's nothing like the real thing. There will be no feeling known like carrying a child in your body, feeling the baby move, feeling it within your womb, carrying actual life. And so, even as I speak about these things, a lot of people don't understand the divine feminine knows that better than anybody. In all the speeches and all the men especially that I've heard speak, not one of them can tell me about what it feels like to carry human life in the body. And understanding that alone helps you connect with unlimited consciousness. You are be able to bring a whole human soul through the etheric realm into the physical. If you understand that and you have actually felt that in your body, whether you got to carry a child to term or not, you still have a connection with that source. And so, you know, preserving your own consciousness and humanity happens in many ways. For some people, it's having children. That's how they carry on their legacy. For some people, it's creating a business. It's an extension of who they are. For other people, it can be creating a movie, creating a film. This is still taking your consciousness and learning how to move forward with it. If you don't want your story to die off, believe in who you are and the power and capabilities that you have now. So, what I would like for you all to take away from this today is that even though it probably feels like so much information, to know that your data has been collected for hundreds of years and it's really just a replication of the way that we once collected it, the way it was once inscripted in temples and in books that have been hidden, thrown away, burned, turned now into your Alexa and your Google search and your OpenAI. These stories never leave us. They are always a part of us and who we are and what we're here to do. And the way that you bring those stories back to life is telling your own. It doesn't mean you need to be making $5 billion tomorrow, that you need to be head of a corporation or company and take down everybody around you. It's about you enacting your own story. Are you stepping into the fullness of who you are and who you remember yourself to be? Because it already lives within you. It already lives within your body and within your soul. So I will take a short break and then I will answer some final questions. Everybody go get a sip of water because this is a lot. I have my green tea and my Shilajit right now because it has to keep me grounded. When I use a lot of my throat chakra and my voice, I have to remember to take breaks and not overdo it. So we're going to take a short break and then I will be back. If you guys want to ask any questions, I will be back in about 5 minutes and we'll do some final wrap up questions. All right, coming back on with YouTube. Does anybody have any questions today about our talk? Anything that they've been curious about that they are looking for answers to? Does anybody happen to have any questions about the things that we are speaking about today? I will say I just really enjoy bringing people up to speed about what's going on because even with the knowledge of even like the slightest thing about our world, I think the hardest part is action. Like, what do we do now that we know all this information? Now that they already took our data, is life even worth living anymore? Do we have anything to get excited about? And the answer for me is yes. Now that you know that the world is available to you, it is literally your oyster. Think of yourself as source code. Think of yourself as the ability to open up your book and write out what happens next in your life. Write it out like it is a story of your life, the movie of your dreams. Who's in your life? Who's in your circle? What do you encounter? What are your challenges, your strengths? What is your story arc? Because I guarantee you it's already been written. It's about becoming aware of the story and your place in it. If you're not the star of your own show, you're walking around lost until you find yourself. Does this mean be narcissistic? No. But narcissist lost himself in his own reflection. So also be aware of the roles in which you are playing and not playing, whether it be the sister, the rejected brother, the angry father, the heartbroken mother. How do we rewrite those stories? How do we rewrite that in a way where we want to see the ending? And is the ending the end, or is it just a new beginning? Hell, they'll give us like 10 seasons of a show and we'll watch those character arcs and forget to live our own. Remember to live your story. Remember to live in what you are and what you're here to do, because you can never go wrong when you're tuned into the self. If we make mistakes, that's because mistakes are meant to be made in order to grow. I say this as someone in human design with a martyr heretic line. My whole life is about messing up and learning from my mistakes so that I can teach people about those mistakes. I can tell you as starting businesses, I started off with just being a sound bath practitioner. Then it was making t-shirts on Shopify. Then I realized that all these things I was trying to be a part of, I only fell in love with because of videos I saw that gave the promise of this giving you success in the ending. And then I had to ask myself, well, what is success to you? Is success money in the bank? Is success doing the same thing on repeat every day? Or is it a culmination of your experiences of growth, the inner alchemization process that you're learning from every day? And after I did that, I stopped really comparing myself, because even in like the line of work of what I do now, which is more of passion than work, I realized that there will never be anyone exactly like me doing what I'm doing. But in fact, I'm a reflection of every story that I see. Hold on, guys. They always ask me to do a little puzzle piece. I'm a reflection of every story. Even the people who like see my decodes and they say, oh, I connect with it so much. I just feel like we've met before. I'm like, because we probably have. We're reflections of one another. We are reflections of ourselves in this experience. The way that we see each other is the way that we see ourselves. Even if you see somebody you don't like and you don't like something about them, that's a reflection of your own perspective. Oh, I don't like them because they did this. Well, we have dark parts too. We have light parts too. It doesn't mean that you've done terrible things in your life. It means that in every timeline, there is a version of you that exists. Which one do you live in? Which frequency do you live at? Because it also lets you know what division of hell you're in, what division of heaven you're in. And heaven and hell are different vibratory states. The frequencies, the sounds, even think about like music that's associated with things that are considered to be lower level or lower realm versus things that are more angelic or higher realms. Look at the way that churches are constructed versus hospitals. Look at the way that banks are constructed versus schools. There is a way in an architecture to the way that the world has been assembled. And it's interesting, even with the worship of the black cube, I wasn't going to talk about that today. I'm like, well, that's funny that we're talking about the reflection of a cube in a place that's supposed to be shaped like a sphere. And then we have people who argue about whether it's flat or not. I'm like, well, let's just take a step back from all of that. What would it mean if we looked at the human experience, the 3D or 4D or 5D dimensional experience, as a 2D, a flat experience? Like when you draw something on paper before it becomes a 3D animation. Or when you tap into the 3D side, then all of a sudden you leave the physical body and you move more into like the 7, the 8, or the 9D. The degrees and levels of consciousness that you're at no longer are associated or assembled to just strictly the material realm. Then you can see across the multiverse. You can see different things that are happening in different planets or different frequencies. And suddenly, when you have an idea, you don't turn on yourself and say, nope, that's not a good idea, because you've already seen it happen. Then what's even funnier is that because we give away so much data and information, half the time we see our own ideas, they're in movies and shows. And we're thought, oh, that's a fictional thing. Where did they get the idea from? We all go to the dream realm when we sleep. We all enter into the subconscious field where ideas are always being constructed into a physical material reality. The question is, when you're here in the material, are you allowing those dreams to come through? Are you feeding them into source? Are you feeding up your own source code? Are you building? Are you creating? Are you utilizing the ultimate power of the human, the hue of light, the range of vibrations? As humans, our experience includes pain, it includes love, passion, obsession, betrayal. That's what makes us us. If you haven't experienced any of those emotions at least once in your life, are you living? Are you moving through the range of the degrees of the sea? And as you know, the ocean doesn't have one flat plane. It's constantly taking you to different depths of understanding. The same as space, the way that they speak about it. This is why people believe it's one and the same. The higher you elevate, the more pressure there is because the human body is attempting to go up and ascend and elevate, but the pressure of ascending back into more knowledge will feel heavy. This is why people, they say they go into psychosis because they can see so much above the flat field that as they try to rise, the pressure is integrating. And so you have to learn how to live in balance, live in between both worlds until it's time to leave the physical body and move back into the etheric realm again, building your light body, building your confidence, building your willpower, building your sacral energy. All of that is a part of the journey. So, I hope you guys enjoyed today's live. I did. Had a good time. Spoke a little longer than I anticipated, but kept myself hydrated because I have to. As I've been delivering more and more transmissions lately, I just brought the podcast back to Tailored Healing TV podcast. I realized because my voice is just such an essential part of what I do that I also have to give it rest and breaks. But when you love what you do, it's kind of hard to not do it. You have to like give yourself a pause and say, let's take a step back. Let yourself rest, recuperate so you can come back again. So I'm going to go ahead and end the live here. I enjoyed it. Thank you guys so much for your time today. If you're interested in joining our free Discord community, be sure to hit the link in my bio, whether you're on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram. We have a community of almost 600 people, you guys. Almost 600 people have gotten curious enough to enter into the Discord space, as chaotic as it may seem, to ask, what is it to decode? What is it to de-layer all of these events that are happening around us at once? And so the community that I built there is just becoming more and more beautiful because I don't even need to decode half the time anymore. They're in there amongst each other, teaching about the world. And that's all I ever really wanted, for people to start communicating with one another again, to understand there's more beneath the surface. And as we open the world up to one another, it's like we're all guiding each other through the levels and degrees of consciousness. The same way people have to become ritualized and initiated into the knowledge, now we're giving it to one another. Also, if you're interested in any of my books, check out my website, tailoredhealingcollective.com, in the Oracle Vault in that shopping section, as well as my Oracle audio transmissions. Those are designed to be recalibrations of the mind. They're recorded meditations by myself that are very good for assessing what you're doing in your neural field, and learning the way that you speak to yourself is most important, because language becomes that form of spelling. How we speak to ourselves becomes a manifestation of our reality. So be sure to check those out. And then the Taylor Healing Collective podcast just came back for season 4. Yesterday, I posted about interviewing with an ex-covert ops agent who's now turned into a priestess. So you can check out my conversation with her, now available on YouTube and all streaming platforms, Spotify, Amazon, iHeartRadio, RSS, and Apple Podcast. And then, of course, it's always on TikTok. You guys can see my Oracle transmissions. I also have been posting them on YouTube more often. So be sure to check those out. Reach out with any questions. And I look forward to sharing with you guys more of my journey. I'm about to get back to working on my bot a little bit, tracking my brain waves, working on my voice cloning, and then I will keep everybody updated on how that's going. So be sure to tune in. Hope you guys have a great rest of your Saturday. Stay high vibration, stay balanced. No, again, this is not the end of the world. This is just the beginning, and our awareness is shifting into divine consciousness. So guys, hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and we will talk soon. Be sure to catch the live replay of this on YouTube later today. I'm going to go ahead and end now.